and welcome to our first session of the Honest GCU Nurse. So I'm going to answer various questions people have in the pre-nursing program or in the early stages of the nursing program at GCU. So today we're just going to look at kind of an overview. I've realized a lot of pre-nursing students know the nursing program is really hard and a lot of work, hard to get in, and you wear purple scrubs, and that's kind of about it. So I want to give a clearer picture of what actually happens. So you enter the nursing program after completing 2 years of prereqs that have a fairly heavy science emphasis. So you take things like anatomy and physiology, which is Bio 201, 202, microbiology, pathophysiology, and chemistry, among other things. And then after those 2 years, you enter the actual nursing program. And so you do have to apply separately for that, and we'll talk about how that works. Once you are in the program, you have 4 semesters, which are a lot of times called blocks or levels. So if you hear people talking about being a block 2, a level 4, that's what they're discussing. So as it is right now, the first block, you are just kind of doing foundations of nursing. So that means you learn like what it is to be a nurse, how to communicate with patients, what's considered your scope of practice and what's the doctor's scope of practice, and things like that, which are really important. And you have labs, so that's where you learn to like give shots, blood pressures, baths, put in a Foley catheter, things like that. So you're working a lot with dummies and models, but you're developing your skills. And then semester 2, which is when the fun starts, is when you actually get to be in the hospital or a clinical setting and work with in the flesh patients, and then it feels like it's worth it. The first semester is pretty tough, so when you're getting into that mentality, you have to realize like it gets better. Also, in the program, you are placed in a cohort. So my cohort has about 25 people, and they vary, but they're roughly that size, and you're with the same group of people for all your classes for the whole duration of the program. So that's kind of nice. You get to know people well. I strongly recommend using GroupMe to communicate once you're in the program. But also, in the program, you have a lot of variation. So you still keep having your labs and stuff like that, but the kind of the nature of the classes changes as you go. So we'll talk about that in later videos. So right now, the question is, how do I get in? So exactly when the date is will depend based on when you're applying, and your SSA will go over that. You want to contact them with those questions. But basically, when you're applying, they look at 2 things: your GPA and your HESI score. So the GPA, obviously, you know what that is. You want to keep it as high as you can, as early as you can. Especially those science classes, they look at your overall GPA and then your specific just science GPA, because they want to make sure you have a good basis. So you want to make sure to protect those scores early. If you need help, reach out. The Learning Lounge is a great resource on campus if you're struggling, but that definitely has a big weight. A lot of people get upset because if you're a CNA or have done volunteering or anything like that, that doesn't go into your application. It just matters on those 2 scores, the GPA and the HESI. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but you want to know upfront that's what you're really looking to support. The HESI is a standardized test that you take at the beginning of your program, but also you take it throughout the nursing program, which nobody tells you, but it's to prepare for your licensing exam when you graduate, which is called the NCLEX. So your initial HESI is not about nursing content, it's just to see kind of how much you've retained from the classes you already had. So there's a math component, reading comprehension, grammar, some anatomy and physiology. There used to be chemistry, they took that off for this program. So there's a personality test, that's just to make sure you're not a psychopath, that's not part of your grade. So for all of those, there's different ways to prepare. A lot of people like to get the HESI study book, which you can get online or at a public library, and study from that standpoint. That wasn't the route I took, but you want to know what's going to help you be most confident. As you go through that process, you have to start learning what helps you take a test well and not what helps everyone else take a test well. I would look at how you did on your SAT or your ACT in high school and use that as a kind of a way to gauge it. For me, I did really well on my pre-SAT without studying, and I studied a lot and just did okay on my SAT. So I chose not to study for the HESI, which that's up to you. But I got a 90%, which is pretty good. One big thing is in nursing school. There's very perfectionist personalities, and people tend to stress a lot, and you have to learn how to manage that stress. So when you do go to take it, you want to do things that are going to keep you calm. So make sure you have a good night's sleep the night before, a good breakfast, you've already had your coffee if you're a coffee drinker. If you aren't now, you will be by the time you're done nursing. And that you actually, I would recommend bringing headphones. People tend to freak out in the lobby while they're waiting, and you just want to be able to stay calm, stay separate. Remember, it's your test. You're not taking their test, and you don't need to take their stress either. That has to be part of your choice. So the actual components are all online. It's an online test. I took it in the computer lab here. I think everybody takes it in the computer lab. And you get to choose the subjects in the order you want. When you book the test, it says it's for 5 hours, which kind of freaked me out. I'm a very slow test taker. I always take the whole class period. I'm always that last person who's there going over their test that everybody's annoyed with. But it actually only took me about 3 hours, so I would imagine most people don't spend too long. They just give you plenty of time. You get to pick the order of the subjects as you're going along. So you just click if you want to start with math, if you want to start with reading comprehension, that's up to you. So that can be kind of a relief. If you are not a fan of math, it's actually pretty straightforward, very practical math. It was mostly, I think all but 2 questions when I took it were like unit conversions. So you just want to make sure you know how many ounces are in a cup and how many kilograms correlate to how many pounds, things like that. But the actual mathematical part is not hard. Another thing I've observed is a lot of people struggle with the grammar section. I'm actually a writing tutor on campus, and I would strongly recommend looking into the book called Woe Is I, A Grammarphobe's Guide to English in Plain English by Patricia O'Connor. You can get it on Amazon for like $4. It's a really great resource, and it just explains grammar and punctuation and things like that very simply. The author is very funny, so that helps, and it's written more like a conversation than a grammar book, so it's very clear, and it's a great resource to have even after the HESI, so I would look into that. I wanted to show you mine, but I lent mine to somebody that's taking the HESI. And so besides that, okay, there's no longer chemistry required on the test, and I would look into timing of when you're going to take it. I took my test a week after I finished both chemistry and bio 202, which was great because I finished finals, I wasn't worrying about school, I could just kind of relax and be refreshed for the test, which is important. And also, all the information was fresh. So I would recommend that kind of timing right after finishing a semester, so things are still in your mind, but you're not too overwhelmed. And again, you want to talk to your SSA about what's available for that. Another nice thing is you get to see your score at the end of the test. It's right there. It tells you before you leave, so you kind of have an idea. There isn't a minimum score necessarily that they're looking for because they're looking for the top bracket of the applicants. So it really depends how well your peers do, which is another reason you want to focus on just what you need to do and not what everyone else needs to do, because then that reduces your ability to get into the program. So that's basically how the HESI works in itself. One other thing I did want to say, which you may have heard people talk about this as well, there are 2 rates at which you can take the program once you're actually in the nursing program. The first is just traditional, so you have an ordinary fall and spring semester, and so then the program takes 2 years. The other method is fast track, which I'm in fast track, and it doesn't mean anything special, it just means you have a full 15-16 week semester in this summer. So sometimes people apply for one track and end up on another track. That's also a variability when you're applying, so you just kind of want to be aware of that. So I want to know what questions you have about nursing and nursing school, both from what I can answer from my experience and also ask my peers, because it really helps to be able to get other people's opinions, and there's a lot going on. So let me know what you want to know. You can comment below, or you can email me at honestgcunurse@gmail.com. And until next time, best wishes from one GCU nurse to another.